the College Football Guy channel, starting off at week 9 of the 2022 season. I'm doing my top 25 predictions. First, we have North Carolina State versus Virginia Tech at North Carolina State. North Carolina State has kind of disappointed me as a football team this year. And just losing games, almost losing to East Carolina. They got beat pretty decently by Clemson. They made it look close because they came back at the end, but really Clemson had it in the bag. They almost lost to Florida State. They were down 17-0 at half, and Florida State let them all the way back in. And honestly, North Carolina State has just been a letdown for me this year. I thought they were going to be a really good football team, like at least a one-loss team finishing off in a high bowl game, but they've kind of just disappointed me. But that isn't going to change my answer for this. I think Virginia Tech is a terrible team, and it's at North Carolina State. They're favored by 13.5 points. I think North Carolina State's going to win this one simply 37-12. Easily, North Carolina State will not struggle. I have no touchdowns for Virginia Tech. Those are all field goals. This game will be an easy one for North Carolina State. Next up, we have Washington State, or Utah at Washington State. I'm going to put this one on upset alert because we have seen Washington State compete really well. They beat Wisconsin, which didn't look like a good win for a while, but it's slowly starting to look like a better win. And it was also at Wisconsin, so that is also pretty cool. But we also saw Washington State lead the whole game against Oregon and then sell the bag and lose. But now we look and see that that was actually a really impressive game for Washington State because Oregon just is on a roll. Like, since that Georgia loss, they have looked so much better since then. Granted, they were playing in the Pac-12, so we could be making them look a lot better, but Washington State held in that game, and Oregon looks like a really good football team. Washington State also held in against USC up until half. They got beat 34-14, but at halftime it was 14-7. They just shut off in the second half. Then they lost to Oregon State, who's kind of in the same boat as Washington State, but that game was at Oregon State. So I'll give Washington State some credit there. But I think Utah going on the road after a win at USC and coming off of a bye week, they're like, oh, we got a nice and easy game. I think Washington State, there's potential that Washington State could go in here and make an upset happen. And I think, even though that's just speculation, I think Washington State's going to cover the spread. I think it's going to be a close one. This might even be a last-second Utah field goal. And I think Washington State's going to get ahead early on, and Utah's just going to trail. But I think Utah will still win this game. Utah's a pretty good football team. That loss against Florida was devastating. And the loss against UCLA was just, I don't even know what happened there. I just think UCLA was the better football team. Next game, we have Florida at Georgia. I don't think Florida's necessarily a terrible team, but I wouldn't say they're good enough to maybe pull an upset off at Georgia. Let's cut to the chase. Georgia's them. They are them. There's a reason they're number one. They've shit on every single team except for Missouri and Kent State. Like, they crushed Oregon. Granted, first game of the season, whatever. But still a very impressive win. They also crushed, just like the little teams, like, they crushed South Carolina at South Carolina. And now South Carolina is on the top 25. Like, that just feels a little weird. Like, They just completely destroy South Carolina at home, 48-7, and now South Carolina's on the top 25. Like, wow, Georgia must like be that good that they beat the shit out of number 25. But since then, we really haven't seen Georgia play anybody. They've had pretty easy games. Like, their only ranked game that they've played was against Oregon. That was the first game of the season, so I guess this will be like their first sort of test. It is at Georgia. For some reason, Georgia has a ton of home games, like an absurd amount. In one of their 2 away games, they almost lost one to Missouri. Missouri sucks. That was almost a crazy game. If Georgia would have lost that, the world would have been flipped on its head, and we would have been just stupid people. Like, we would have no idea what to think. But they didn't. And I think this will be the first test, but there's no matter. I think Georgia's still going to do it. I think Florida's going to put on some points, because normally Florida puts on some points towards the end of games and makes scores closer, but Georgia is them. They're just so good. I thought they were really going to just fall off this year and be like number 12 or something. After like how many people they lost to the NFL, they're still just like that. But our next game, Oklahoma State at Kansas State. Oh God, I don't even remember what I put down for this. I think Kansas State's favored by 1.5. Oklahoma State likes to get really close on games. They like to be down a lot and get really close and win. But I think Kansas State could potentially pull off the upset they deserve. The sad loss against TCU after leading the whole game pretty much. I don't know. I think I have Oklahoma State winning this one, though. Oklahoma State's a really good football team, but they get down in the first half, and they always have to climb back and surprise me. So, yeah, I have this one 42-35. It'll probably be like 28-35 in the fourth quarter or something, and Oklahoma State will do some crazy shit to just get in the lead. All right, next game we've got UCF versus Cincinnati at UCF. UCF is 5-2, and they look like a pretty solid team. I'm surprised they're only favored by 1.5. I would have favored them by like 4.5, honestly. Cincinnati, let's be real. Cincinnati lost to Arkansas. That was like their toughest game. They win that, they would have been they would have been in the top 10 right now if they won that. But they lost it, and Arkansas has really fallen off and become a bad team. But UCF, they lost to like a good team, and then they barely lost. Or no, they got their ass kicked by East Carolina at East Carolina, and they barely lost by 6 points to Louisville. I can justify the Louisville game because Louisville's not doing too bad. I think they're 3-4, but the East Carolina game isn't too bad either because East Carolina almost beat North Carolina State. And East Carolina might have a lot more losses, but they're still a good football team. And I just think Cincinnati, especially after the SMU game, as close as it was, I don't think Cincinnati can pull this one off. Close game. I actually think I should have that at 34 instead of 32. But I don't know. I don't think Cincinnati can keep their win streak going. I think UCF is going to pull off the upset. Oh, Michigan State versus Michigan. What has happened to Michigan State this year? Starting off at number 14 and climbing up to, I think, number 9 or number 10. And then getting their ass kicked by Washington. Michigan, there's really not much to say. This is a rivalry game. Michigan's number 4. This is going to be an annihilation. There's just no chance for Michigan State to come in here and pull off an upset. Yeah. 42-14. Michigan State will most likely score a defensive touchdown like they did against Ohio State to give them some points, but they just won't do anything else. They're a shithole. I don't know what happened to them. Ohio State at Penn State. I guess you could put this game on upset alert. Oh my goodness. Ohio State's favored by 15.5 points. No, I think this game, Ohio State is like them. Like Georgia is them, but Ohio State is them. Like this is a Hall of Famer team. This team will go down in history as potentially one of the best football teams in college football history. Like this is LSU 2019 type shit. Like I think Penn State will put up competition. It's at Penn State. Penn State's number 13. And it is a really hard place to play for Ohio State. Like, they'll be making penalties. They might even make a couple turnovers. But, like, Penn State is a hard place to play in. But nonetheless, I think Ohio State is a good football team. And they'll cover the spread. 15.5. I would honestly say this should be more like 8. But I have Ohio State winning 49-31 just because Ohio State is going to have stuff like penalties, but Penn State is going to just make more mistakes. And a team can't make mistakes against a team like Ohio State. That's going to lead to their downfall. Ohio State is going to capitalize on every opportunity they can get. And I just think Penn State, I think this will be the game where Penn State will just be like kind of sorted for the rest of the season. They'll play this game and we'll be like, we can determine where they should be ranked. With the killing at Michigan, I feel like this game should be like, okay, well, at home they play decent. On the road, they don't play decent. They should be like right around here. And this win should put Ohio State at number 1, but we'll see. TCU at West Virginia. I kind of had to do like this because, white uniforms are awesome. TCU is crazy right now. I genuinely did not see this coming. I thought Oklahoma State was surely going to win against TCU, but TCU somehow managed to win. And, I mean, even after, like, really struggling against Kansas, who now we look at Kansas and we're like, they're not that good. TCU, man, they're on a roll right now, and I'm so for it. I love that TCU is in the top 10 right now. Like teams like Oklahoma State and TCU and just other like smaller schools in the top 10, I'm so in favor of them because I just love the underdogs. Sick and tired of seeing the same teams like Alabama and shit in the top 10. So I have TCU winning this one at West Virginia. Close game because so far all of TCU's games have been close games and it's at West Virginia. I don't think they're too bad. They just got killed by Texas Tech at Texas Tech, granted. And we know Texas Tech isn't a bad team. They had the lead against Oklahoma State. They could have pulled off that upset, but they just kind of sold. And I think West Virginia can do some. They can make it a scary game. They will make this game a scary game. Almost want to say that this would be the final score from overtime. But yeah, that's what I have. TCU all the way. Just kidding. Notre Dame at Syracuse. I've lost all hope for Notre Dame. I have lost a lot of hope for Syracuse too. Syracuse should have won that game against Clemson, and truly if they were a top 25 team, they would have won that game. They had so many turnovers that Clemson winning that game looks embarrassing and looks sad. Like, you can't lose a game with that many turnovers, especially one of them being a scoop and score. That's just so disappointing. So disappointing. Granted, it was at Clemson, but like 4 turnovers. Come on. Now, Notre Dame, on the other hand, they're a shithole. They are terrible. Losing to Marshall, Stanford, and I don't remember who else. They pulled off some wins against like BYU and stuff, but no. I accidentally put the logos on the wrong side. Sorry. But Syracuse is only favored by 2. I think Syracuse will cover that. 26-14. Syracuse hasn't been in really high-scoring games, and Notre Dame sucks. So, yeah. I think Syracuse is going to take this one. Oregon at California. This is the first game I have on like upset watch. Oregon coming off of a huge victory against UCLA. Like, they dominated UCLA at home. It looks great for Oregon. It's putting them back in. I think I have them ranked wrong. I think they're number 8. Yes, I do. I apologize for that. They are number 8. They're favored by 17 points. It's at California, and I just think all of the things are there. They're just like, they're now getting all this talk about potentially winning the Pac-12 championship and going to the Pac-12 championship, or I'm sorry, the college football playoffs. After losing to Oregon so bad, they could bounce back. And I just think this is like one of those games where like they get all this talk and whatnot, and Cal's just going to go in and upset them. The same thing happened in 2019. Justin Herbert and the Ducks go into Arizona State. They're doing great, crushing it. Arizona State's barely even a positive team. Like, we are literally 5-4 at the time, or maybe even 4-5. And we just win that game. ASU wins that game, and everybody gets shocked. I think Oregon's going to do the same thing. History's going to repeat itself at California, and it's going to be a close one, but California's going to do it. They're going to beat Oregon. And if I'm wrong, then you can clown on me. But I just have a strong feeling in my gut. Wake Forest. This seems phenomenal. Let's be real. Number 5 in the country is Clemson, and they're most likely going to go to the college football playoff. Like, I don't see what could stop them other than North Carolina, maybe, if North Carolina goes to the ACC championship against them. I don't see what can stop Clemson from going. So Wake Forest losing that game, that's so shitty. But Wake Forest is still a really good fucking team. They're really good. Clemson is a really good team. Like, let's be real. But Wake Forest is pretty good, and I think Wake Forest can win every game here and go into a nice bowl game. So I have them winning this game pretty well. It's at Louisville, but I don't know about Louisville. They're kind of mid for me. I think Wake Forest is going to win this off of turnovers and whatnot. Just a better football team. Illinois at Nebraska. No matter how much I want to keep the Illinois train alive, it's been so long since they've been good, and I love it. But it's at Nebraska, and good things have to die. Good things go away eventually. I have Nebraska winning this one by 2 points. Illinois is going to fall. Don't think it should kick them off of the top 25, but I just don't think they're going to win. I think Nebraska's going to do it. Nebraska had a great game against Purdue last week. Really showed that they show potential. And yeah, I just think Illinois is going to lose. Missouri at South Carolina. Yeah, Missouri sucks. They're so bad. South Carolina's really bounced back since that Georgia loss. They look a lot better. And Missouri looks terrible. That Auburn-Missouri game was so bad. Like, that was the worst thing I have ever seen. I just turned it off when it went into overtime. I can't watch anymore. So I have South Carolina killing them 44-14, and hopefully this will boost South Carolina up into the top 25 more. And yeah, that's that. Kentucky at Tennessee. We could put this game on upset watch. I love Tennessee. I love this team right now. Like, they are awesome, and I want them to go. I don't think they're gonna beat that Georgia. I don't think they could do it. But I think there is a potential way that if Georgia wins the SEC championship, Tennessee could maybe sneak in to the college football playoff, or they would get a really high bowl game. But nonetheless, I still have Tennessee winning this game pretty decently because Tennessee's offense is really fucking good. Like, their offense is just insane. But Kentucky has really surprised me. You know, they lost to Ole Miss, and that was when I was like, they were ass. I was like, they suck. Ole Miss is a bad team, and they just lost to them. They suck. But they really kind of have impressed me. So I would not be surprised if this score is incorrect and Kentucky may even win. Oh, USC at U of A, my rival. I think U of A actually might. We could put this game on upset alert because seriously, USC just lost to Utah, and USC's had a lot of struggle. Their offense is phenomenal, but I don't know about their defense. And U of A is all about their offense and no defense. So surely USC should run over U of A offensively, but defensively, I think they're going to struggle against U of A. And you can maybe even put this game on upset alert, but at this point, if I even had hope in them in the first place, I've lost all hope in U of A. They suck. They're so bad. 42-23 is what I'm going to say, but maybe there's a chance that, this game is a little closer, maybe even a loss for USC. Ole Miss at Texas A&M. Texas A&M is going to win this one. Ole Miss is hella overrated, and this is going to be a very hard place to play at. The Aggies have really flopped. Starting off at number 6, they've fallen apart. But I think Ole Miss is just bad, and this game would be like a bounce-back game for Ole Miss, and it's not going to be. They're going to lose. They're even favored. I think Texas A&M, this is where they're going to get some glory. Close game, but yeah, I just think they're going to lose. Pitt at North Carolina. This game was a really difficult one because I haven't really seen much of North Carolina or Pitt. The only game I saw of North Carolina was that Appalachian State North Carolina game, and North Carolina wins it, but that was like Appalachian State. We know they beat Texas A&M, but they've kind of fallen apart since then, and if you even call it falling apart or just playing at their level, I don't really know whether we could call North Carolina good or not. And I guess this would be a game that kind of, shows us whether they are good or not. And Pitt lost to Tennessee at home in a close game, great game, but they pretty much led that game the whole way. And from there, I haven't seen much of Pitt. So I kind of just took a guess, and I gave this one to North Carolina because they're at home and they're ranked with a much better record. But yeah, that's what I have this one as. And finally, Stanford versus UCLA at UCLA. ASU just lost to Stanford, and let me justify why. We had Emory Jones in. We need to put our second string in, or quote-unquote second string. We would have won that game. Emory Jones sold. He sucked. He had one good throw in the game, and rest of the time was just garbanzo. He's so bad, and we need to get him out. And I think ASU is going to finally have a wake up. And at UCLA, Stanford just doesn't stand a chance. The fact that ASU hung in there with Emory Jones is okay, this Stanford team sucks ass. And I think Stanford is going to get their ass kicked. 42-13. And this will put UCLA maybe up a rank, maybe even just stay the same. And we will see what my prediction is next week for ASU versus UCLA. And yeah, that's it. That is it for the top 25 predictions. A lot of crazy stuff going on this week. It looks like a lot of ranked teams with one loss playing against 3 and 4 teams. So there's a lot of potential for upset this week. I don't have many teams getting upset other than Ole Miss and Oregon, but, we'll see what happens. College football is a crazy game, and I love it. So that's what we're here for.